welcome back to the Dicebreaker podcast. This is episode 41. I'm Matt Jarvis. I'm, of course, joined by two of the team this week. Welcome back, Alex Lolies, your first appearance back on the podcast in 2021. How are you doing? How was your holidays? How were your holidays?
They was fine, yeah. I'm just let's move on from there. I'm gonna come straight in with the bingo call for 41 because that's literally my role on this entire podcast, and it's actually very aptly 41 time for fun.
Yeah.
So I mean, isn't that what this podcast is all about?
Yeah. It is, Lolies. That is the Dicebreaker motto. Time for fun.
Yeah, it's the tagline under everything that we do. Also, I missed last week, so I thought I'd keep you all updated because I know everyone's pretty much just listening to the podcast for this bit. So,
yeah.
In case you missed last week, 40 is life begins.
That doesn't rhyme. What?
I know.
Again.
By saying, I really like next week's one, but I don't want to spoil it. But I've just seen it, and it's like, I love it.
I don't
now everyone stops the recording because they don't want to listen to the rest.
Yeah, we should really backload the bingo chat. I would like to, who's deciding that these are the official bingo calls? Is there like a group of people sat around going like, what rhymes with 39?
Well, rhyming doesn't seem to be the all-out rule, though,
no, because 39 was 39 steps as well, so that was another not rhymey one.
Yeah, that's right. They're just sat around going, I don't know.
Okay, what would be better than 39 steps? If we get 39...
Just in time.
Time for wine! Oh.
Sure, yeah.
Wow, yeah! It's much better than these.
I mean, we sorted that, alright.
Yeah, alright, well, look forward to our list of the 99 top bingo calls.
90.
I'm not doing that list.
I'll do him.
You're welcome to it.
Of course, we are joined by Alex Meehan. Hello, Alex Meehan.
Hi. I don't have any bingo calls, but I can bring a lot of fun. I like to think, anyway. That's why people invite me to things, because I bring the fun.
Bring the thunder.
Yeah.
It's like bringing the noise, but...
Yeah.
It's like, you bring the noise, I'll bring the fun, and, we can... Someone else get potato salad.
I'll bring some crisps.
Yeah.
I do like potato salad, but I guess fun sort of encapsulates both the noise and many other things. So it's a more of a catch-all term for just general enjoyment.
I'd like to go back on something you said there, and I'd like to just say that potato salad is massively underrated.
Thank you very much, Lolies. Yes.
Sure,
I think potato salad is fantastic, especially if you get a good one. And I think everyone forgets about it. The only time you really have it is at a barbecue, right? I don't think anyone has potato salad outside barbecues.
Is it one of those things that's considered like very 70s at this point, like prawn cocktail and that kind of thing?
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I love potato salad. I'm not saying I consider it like 70s, but I think it like falls into that, plastic plates, everybody gathered round.
Plastic plates a thing in the 70s? I have no idea, mate. I wasn't around.
I think they were invented in the 70s.
Before then, it was just handfuls of potato salad. In the 60s, they were just covered in it.
Yeah, people would eat off bread like they did in the medieval times.
Off bread?
Yeah. Like before we had plates, we would use like really hard, like slices of bread. I'm not kidding. Look it up.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you
learned
go.
Something new.
I'm all for it. Yeah, instead of a bowl, just like a very crispy Yorkshire pudding.
Bread bowls are a thing, though.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wanted those.
I've always wanted one as well.
Yeah.
There's a place that in London somewhere that does something called breakfast and bread, and they do or used to do it on like a Saturday or Sunday, and I've tried to go a couple of times, but I could never get in, or if I did get a seat, or if I could get a seat, I should say, they were like, yeah, we're out of breakfast and breads, and I was like, no, they look so good, and then they stopped doing them, and now I don't know if they've started doing them again, but yes, that's my story.
There's got to be a recipe for that somewhere. You must be able to kind of put that together at home.
Yeah, but I don't want to.
I mean, you could probably get like a nice. Is it a cob? Is it a cob? The ones that are quite round, like
Yeah.
You could get a nice one of those, like scoop out the innards and then chuck in like, I don't know, some sausages. Is that what you do? Like with the breakfast and bread? Who knows?
I've never had one, so I don't know.
Anyway,
we are here, as well as discussing breakfast foods, we're here to discuss board games and tabletop RPGs for this week. And of course, as usual, we start off with what we've been playing. I'll go first because all I've played is a game of Root. That was it. I didn't win, so it's not worth noting. Let's move on. Alex Lolies, you've not...
Was that your week?
Okay.
Was that your weekly game of Root with Meehan?
It was, yeah. I came so close to winning as well. I was playing the Eerie. I went into turmoil a couple of times, but it actually ended up kind of interesting because for once one of the players came very close to winning with a dominance card, which is not something that I've had happen a lot in Root. So they were playing as the Marquis de Cat, and I was the Eerie. And
sounds kinky to me, that's all I can say.
So the dominance card, it basically replaces your victory points. So instead of getting to 30 victory points, you no longer have points, and you have to achieve a very specific objective. Oh. So in this case, it was to hold 3 fox clearings until the start of the next turn. But that meant that because they were the Marquis de Cat and I was the Eerie, I was throwing all my troops into stopping them taking a fox clearing so that they wouldn't just win instantly on their next turn. So there were 5 or 6 rounds where we just went back and forth. And in the meantime, the Vagabond and the Woodland Alliance were able to just sweep in and catch up with us.
I mean, you're exaggerating what happened, okay? Like, sweep is not what I'd use to describe what I did. It's more the case of I destroyed my livelihood in the hopes of winning the game, which actually really messed me over. And then my friend ended up winning the game as the Woodland Alliance, even though we are fully aware of the fact that they do that on a regular basis. And yet, we were still bamboozled by it. So there you go.
Great use of the word bamboozled.
Thank you.
But Lolies, as you haven't been on since last year, what have you played in the time since we last saw you or caught up?
Okay, I wrote quite a long list, and there's actually more in this list, but I was like, I need to stop somewhere. So I've played some of my faves, like Quacks of Quedlinburg on Tabletop Simulator, Machikoro, I talked to a few new people, Can't Stop, which is a great roll and write I talked about before. I played this, oh my god, on Christmas Day, I really wanted somebody to just come into the house and, like, I don't know, kidnap me or something, because we played this game, wasn't chosen by me. I went, so, right, just to rewind for a second, myself and my boyfriend at the time went to his friends for Christmas Day, because they're from Ireland as well, and they also didn't go home this year, and they just live up the road, so we just went to them for the day. And I was told, you're in charge of, like, entertainment. So I brought board games, I brought, like, my Switch, and put some games on the Switch. And in the end, we played only one game that I brought, which is, like, this emoji game. It's like, you literally show a card, and it's got, like, a number of different emojis, and it will tell you, like, it's the name of a film, and you gotta try and figure it out. And it's really, really fun. It's really simple, but really fun. So we played that. That went down well. We kind of finished the night on that. What we played before that is a game called Fleeced, which is a Wallace and Gromit. Wait, is it a Wallace and Gromit? I think it's a Wallace and Gromit game.
Is it like a Shaun the Sheep one?
Yeah, with loads of sheep in it.
Yeah.
And it was the worst thing I'd ever played in my entire life.
Whoa!
We like sat there, and the thing is that the girl, like, whose house it was, she'd had the game, like, I think she said she had it, like, years ago, and she really liked it, so she got it. She, like, ended up finding on eBay or something, because it's really hard to get a hold of now. And so she was, like, you know, teaching us the game, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna check the rules, and all of her rules were wrong, so I was like, actually it's like this, actually it's like this, actually it's like this. And then it was just, like, just kind of awful, because we're kind of playing half her rules, half the actual rules, and, like, just no, please no. Did not like it. I have to say that the components were incredible, though. it came with a bunch of these like plastic sheep, and they were really well made, and there was like proper weight to them as well. So I was like really impressed with the components of the game, but the actual gameplay was awful.
But do you think it would have been better if you played by the rules as written, or? No?
I don't think it would have made a huge difference, to be honest. It's just a really dull game.
Ouch.
Had she played it recently, or was this kind of like a nostalgic, I'm going back to it with everyone else? And
I think she said she played it during the summer, and she played it with her nieces who cried because it's quite a mean game. Like, you are going around, you have to go into the market square, and there's like shops all around the edge of the square, and once you go around until you pick up cards when you land on certain spaces, and some of the cards give you a key to one of the houses, like the buildings around. So once you've got the key, you need to then land on a specific space, and then you draw another card that tells you how many sheep were in that building, and the sheep are then in the market square, and then you need to roll a certain amount of dice to take the sheep, and then you have to bring them home. But on your way home, other people can come and take your sheep away, and it kind of goes back and forth. So and also if you get this sheep whistle, and once you have sheep in tow, you need to blow the sheep whistle before you can move anywhere. If you don't blow your sheep whistle and you move, all your sheep disappear. So the two guys who were playing kept forgetting to blow their sheep whistle. So every single turn they were losing the sheep, and they were getting really annoyed. And then me and the girl were laughing at them, but also it was just really annoying. So yeah, it can be really cruel, I think, especially for kids who will probably forget to blow the sheep whistle, because you're also not allowed to blow it if you don't have sheep in tow. So it's very important that you only blow it when you have sheep. It's very important, you guys. Okay.
It's up here.
I'll
never forget that.
I think this game will probably replace Root on your weekly games. So just remember that one rule, okay? So anyway, that was horrible. And then two other things I've been playing. Libertalia, which is probably the game that really got me into modern board games. It's a really great pirate themed. I don't know what the mechanic you'd call it actually is. Maybe a programming game. Where everyone has this. You play over 3 weeks, and everyone has the same set of cards. But you play them onto a board, and they have different values, and depending on the values, they happen in a certain order. And then you're trying to get loot, and you're trying to have the most amount of loot at the end of the 3 weeks. But it's really, really, really good, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. And it's on Board Game Arena, and I really love it. So I was teaching it to a friend of mine, and we played a couple of games of that, which was great to go back to. And I really want to get an actual copy, but I think it might be out of print for a good while.
Yeah, I think it is, because a while ago I read a piece by a designer. I think the designer thought actually. But he picked it as his favourite game of all time, and it sounded incredible. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds great! I like pirates. I like the sound of the gameplay." And tried to find a copy and just couldn't.
I think
track it down
might
anywhere.
be my fauvorite pirate themed board game for sure.
Wow.
It's really good. The theme is great. The characters are great. The artwork is brilliant. Obviously I've got that thing of it being one of the first games I ever first kind of modern board games I ever played. Yeah, really, really. I think you can play up to 6 players as well, so it's quite good in that sense.
I think I'm getting it confused with that game where you have to. Is it the one where you have to play different cards and they're worth different values, and that allows you to take treasure at certain times?
No, that's it.
Is that it? Okay, I've also played this game. Okay, I wasn't sure.
And it's on a ship.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to play this card. It means I can take the doubloons.
Yes, that's it. That's the exact thing.
I have also played this game, and I did like it. And it was a physical copy that someone had somehow.
Yeah, same. Yeah, it was a friend of mine in Paris who kind of got me into this stuff, I guess. And he had the game, and that was the first one he kind of taught me, and it was great. And then the final thing I've been playing this, I wrote down times a million, because I literally have been playing this the last kind of week before I came back. I played it literally from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. just over and over again. I took some breaks to play some Beat Saber, but then I would come back and play this again. So much so that this is on Board Game Arena as well. So much so that after one of the games, it gives you like badges on Board Game Arena for like doing certain things, and I received a badge of Addict. Welcome to Addict. So yeah, it's Welcome to. It's a roll and write game. I don't actually know who it's by. But it's really good. I played Welcome to Las Vegas at Essen 2 years ago, and that's like the next one kind of in the series, I think. And I think that one was a bit much for me because I hadn't played Welcome to, and I was like, I don't know what is going on. I enjoyed it, but like it was just a bit overwhelming. And Welcome to is a really nice roll and write that I've obviously grown to love because I've been playing it nonstop. Yeah, where you just put in numbers, you're like building buildings and you can make estates, and there's like a few different kind of roads you can go down. I've also been playing on competitive mode on BGA, so I'm currently a gold rank thing. Don't know what that means.
Wow. Oh, so you're going up against other people because it's pretty good as a solo game, right? Like most roll rights, but
yeah. So you can play this like up to I think 12 people as well. Because it really doesn't matter at the end of the day. Well, it does matter in certain way because there's like certain objectives that are obviously like for everyone, and the more people you have involved, the harder it is to kind of get those. But yeah. So on the competitive kind of, because they've got an arena mode on Board Game Arena, weirdly. There's like you play that against 2 other people, and yeah, and then if you come first, you get a certain amount of points. If you come second, you get a certain amount of points, and if you come third, you lose points from your ranking. So yeah, That's what I've been doing with my time and my life.
Nice.
Probably Welcome to. I think I've only played like twice, but I remember really liking it. It's like do they call it like a flip and write?
Yeah, I guess it would be because you're flipping cards. Yeah, I actually really want to get a physical copy of this because I have enjoyed it that much.
Yeah, but I haven't played the second one. But you say that's just like another step up.
Yeah, so it is quite different actually. Like I don't remember it fully because obviously I hadn't played Welcome to, so I didn't have the comparison. But I remember like you were drawing on roads and you were like creating. I don't know. I think you were also building buildings, but I can't remember exactly. And I think you were putting in like traffic lights or something. But it was set in Las Vegas, so it was like more blocks than like estates, because they've got like rows of houses in Welcome to. It's very suburban, whereas like Las Vegas is obviously in Las Vegas. There's that. I think you build fountains in Las Vegas as well, actually.
Oh yeah, because you can do pools in normal Welcome to. Is it? I guess.
Yeah. Pools,
because it's like I think it's full name is like Welcome to Your Perfect Home, which is just of course everybody just calls it Welcome to because that's just a over long name.
I think it's just called Welcome to on Board Game Arena as well. But I think you're right. I think it is called Welcome to Your Perfect Home. I think the series is Welcome to, right? And then it's maybe, blah 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 is the bit afterwards.
I'm just sat here just
yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been playing, Meehan?
Not Welcome to.
Oh, you're missing out.
Yeah, I want to play more roll and writes because pretty much the only roll and writes I've played is Yahtzee, obviously, and Gans Clever, and like that's about it. And I know that you and Matt are both big fans of roll and writes, so I do want to get in on that. I know you like Railroad Inc. a lot, Mr. Jarvis.
Yeah, I like. And I think Gans is one of the best roll and writes. I mean, it's like pure mechanical. It is as roll and write as they come. You roll those dice, you put them in the box, and you get some numbers out the other end.
Because it requires you to have some understanding of like numbers and how they work, and I'm not very good at that. So I just sort of participated, and I was like, "This is fun." Well, my other friends were like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," and they were so competitive, and I was just sat there in the corner on my stool, just like, "I like numbers."
Gans is one of those games where after you've played it a number of times and you start to get into the knowledge of like, okay, here's where I should be building up, because you can't do everything, so it's like trying to balance out. Because my wife and I got very heavily into it for a number of months, and we would compete with each other, where we would both be playing the solo mode and trying to beat each other's scores.
A dark time.
We were
a dark time in the
games.
Jarvis household.
So it's like, at points I was like looking up strategies of like, okay, how does this work? Where should I be putting my numbers? Which powers should I be aiming for?
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd ever get like that for any game ever. I think the closest I ever got like that for any game is maybe like Super Smash Bros, and that's a video game. But
I was gonna say I've recently done that for the very first time ever, and it's Beat Saber. I actually was like, how do I maximize my points in this game? I felt like such a nerd, like reviewing it, like reading an article about it.
But there are great people who do those articles, so it's nice to support them. But apart from Root, the only other thing I've been playing is Wingspan, which we talked about before. This is the digital version of the game because I can't get a hold of the physical copy because
We've played it.
On the stream. I do really want a physical copy though because it's a beautiful game. It's just a question of funds really, but my friend and I played it over the weekend, and because she was like, can we play Wingspan? I was like, yeah, okay. So we just sat down on the same PC and played it that way because you can play locally. Because it doesn't really matter if your opponents see what you're doing because the game literally tells you what they're doing. And when you're playing...
Also in real life, you
would be able to see what people are doing. So it's not really like that. Like Wingspan, it's not really hugely interactive in terms of between players. Like you have a few things like, oh, if I have this bird, it means when this person does this, I also get to do this or something like that. But for the most part, people are in their own sort of worlds during the game. But it was really interesting. I won one and she won the other one, and we both like won on a similar kind of point count. So for the first game I got like 70 points or something, and she got 70 points like for the next game. So it's almost like we totally flipped our outcomes. But you'd be surprised how much of that game is driven by luck. Like a lot of it's just what do you draw at the start and throughout the game, and like what the bonuses are, because sometimes and with the food. So like during one of the games I just was not getting the food I needed to play my bird cards, which meant that it just, because it's an engine builder game, it just slows the pace of your game down so much. Like whereas when you're in the zone, like when you're playing like this bird card and this bird card and like, oh, I'll lay some eggs, and it feels like so good when you're on a roll. Like it's a really good game, like Wingspan. It's just so digitally it actually works really well. Like I've not played the physical version, so I wouldn't be able to tell exactly like how different it would be, but it, like, aside from a few examples of where you can't go back on something because it's just a bit too late, for the most part the game just works really well. It's very intuitive and we had a lot of fun. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, Wingspan, I think it helps that the app is just so slick as well. It's probably right up there with the best of the kind of board game apps going.
Yeah, we've
just makes everything very easy to see and understand.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes the bird facts don't play. No idea why. Just randomly, sometimes they just won't play. Like, some rounds it's fine. Other times you'll play one and it's silent. Okay, we don't need to learn about that bird.
There are no facts about this bird. Factless.
Yeah, the woman who does the facts is like, I'm not doing this one.
Yeah, I'm on a break. She's like having a cigarette.
Yeah,
I don't know, penguins.
Yeah, her voice is so like gentle that the idea of her sat like on a step outside smoking a cigarette
with a cup of tea.
Like, I'll be there in a second.
Look it up. This thing called Wikipedia, don't you know?
Flicking cigarette butts at the pigeons and then walking back in time and being like, birds are magnificent creatures.
Yeah. I love that.
Alrighty, should we move on to news?
Wow, news.
Yes, that is the correct response to this news. There's been quite an exciting week. There's a lot that's already on the way, only a week or two into the new year. So first up, we have, I can't remember if we spoke about this on the podcast last week. We may have not because it was only a teaser at the time. But the new game from the designer of Star Wars Rebellion, Mansions of Madness, Eldritch Horror, Battlestar Galactica, the board game, I think also worked on the latest Twilight Imperium, Kinich Kanesha, has been revealed. So it's called The Initiative, which is a word that I've discovered that I consistently misspell every time I type it. I miss out an I or put an I in the wrong place.
It's a toughie.
Yeah.
There's a lot of I's.
Yeah, there are a lot of I's in that one.
So happily Chase wrote this up, mainly because of my fear of the word initiative. But
He
it's
took initiative, did he?
yeah, exactly. Very good. It's a really interesting... So Corey worked on, although he's probably best known for Mansions of Madness, Eldritch Horror and so on, Corey also worked on, what's it called? Discovery Lands Unknown? Which was the other game that came out around the time of Keyforge. And was the other unique game, quote, unique.
This is the first time I've ever heard of this.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't particularly well received, but it was... The concept of it was that the game was semi-randomized in every box. So you would open your box and you would have a unique combination of quests, characters, land, terrain tiles, all of that. So this was while Corey was still working at Fantasy Flight Games, which he then left in mid-2019, I think, to start up Unexpected Games, which is a new studio that is also owned by Asmodee, which owns Fantasy Flight. So The Initiative is the first game to come out of Unexpected Games. It was kind of delayed out of last year due to COVID, but now it's been revealed. And the reason I bring up Discovery Lands Unknown, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called, is that it seems to be another quite ambitious kind of melding of ideas. So it's a board game, but it is a kind of cooperative game where different sessions are tied together by a comic book. So you'll read a comic book as kind of like a prelude to each session. And then I think at the end of each session, you'll read it and it will continue the story and tie everything together. And it also appears to be using some kind of like ARG. So like a meta game. They've got a website up and running that has puzzles that haven't been revealed yet. They had a code to announce the title. And so it seems like they're trying to go beyond kind of just the board game on the table in a lot of ways. But the general kind of premise of it is that you are a bunch of teens in 1994, and you are exploring a board game called The Key, which is a board game in the universe of the board game The Initiative.
You've lost me already, mate.
Yeah.
You had me in 1994, a very good year. But then I'm like...
A very good year.
I was born that year.
Were you even alive? Okay, you were born that year.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. We don't know loads about it. It's kind of...
You sounded like one of those wine sneaks. Ah, yes, a very good year.
Very good year for people.
It was a very good year. So yeah, the short of this is that it seems to be quite ambitious in terms of what it's trying to pull off. There's a comic book in there, there's the ARG, there's this kind of board game within a board game in the narrative or whatever it is. And they mention elements of code cracking and puzzle solving. So that's kind of what we know. And it's also out very soon. It's out this spring.
Whoa.
There's no Kickstarter, nothing like that. It's just coming out. So
good.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what it is after all of this time. So Corey kind of describes it as a passion project, and it, like I say, it's been in the works a while. It seems more than a year. So
intriguing.
Yeah. Very intriguing.
Well, yeah. I mean, as you were like reeling off, I'm gonna ruin this so bad. Kinich Kanesha.
Wait, what?
the games they've designed, like it's like the greatest hits of some of modern board games. Like, yeah, some of modern board games' greatest hits. So you'd think that that's a pretty good horse to back in terms of, yeah, like if they're designing it, hopefully it's not overly ambitious.
Yeah, which I think the downfall of Discovery versus something like Keyforge. Keyforge was it had this ambitious, each deck is unique idea, but it was very clear cut. It was just like, you've got a different deck, you've got a different deck. Whereas Discovery, from what I read and what I heard, was that it just felt a bit like directionless as a result, because it was trying to be a more kind of a bigger scale.
This is what I'd worry about with this, because it sounds like there's a lot going on with like a comic book and, you know, AR stuff, and, you know, if it's just there's puzzle solving and code breaking and there's like a comic book you can get along with it, then fair enough. But the fact that all of these elements are kind of required with the game make me sit there and think, is this going to be a bit of a mess? But maybe it will be a masterpiece. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah. It's what I'll quickly add, because I expect some folks in the comments might point this out. Of course, like, Corey didn't design all of those games alone. Like Nikki Valens helped out with Mansions of Madness, and Twilight Imperium, of course, had several designers, but I think Corey was VP of Design and Research at the time he left Fancy Flight. So, you know, quite high up, like a lot of creative kind of control over those projects.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm intrigued more than anything else. You know, Unexpected Games said that they will be focusing on kind of more ambitious, inventive designs. So hopefully this kind of sets a good example going forward, where we then see that stuff land well, rather than just, you know, potentially just screw up.
Yeah.
You know.
It's good to see a publisher take those kinds of risks.
Yeah,
because
I think that's
on the other hand, we're so used to seeing about €1 billion games that are fairly similar to one another, or like, you know, Fantasy Flight, as much as they produce really quality, you know, products, they're not exactly like at the helm of you know, inventive game design. So hopefully it will straddle those two lines between a mess and, you know, boring.
Let's move on to this next one. Another big announcement this week is the next game from the folks that make Root. Alex Meehan, you wrote the story. Tell us about Ahoy.
Ahoy there, mateys. This was announced earlier this week by Patrick Lado, who is the founder of
I believe
games?
so,
yeah.
You would think so, given that it's named after him, but I don't know if there were other co-founders. But
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm referencing to. But anyway, so it was originally called Hyperspace Smuggler, and it was like a sci-fi game where you fly around the universe and you know, carry illegal goods and such. It was on Kickstarter during 2016, but it kind of failed to get its funding towards the end. And
what?
Yeah.
With a name like that, it managed to not hit the
I saw your face slowly as me and said Hyperspace Smuggler. It's not a good name, is it?
No.
Yeah.
Such a board gaming name.
Yeah, and so it was kind of cancelled. The campaign was cancelled, but it seemed to have been given new life with Ahoy, it's been described as a re-theming. I don't know how much, you know, how different it's going to be from the original, you know, vision of the game. But it's described as an asymmetric adventure game about piracy, rebellion, smuggling, and control. And the creator, Greg Loring Albright, revealed that apparently Hyperspace was originally going to be a pirate game anyway. So it's kind of gone full circle.
Yeah, I mean, it's Smuggler, right? Which is kind of, could be very piratey.
Indeed. So there's no release date for the game as of yet, or whether it's going to have a Kickstarter campaign. All we know is the name and the theme. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what it's going to be like. So, I mean, I liked most of what Loader Games has put out recently. So hopefully this follows that same vein of quality.
I think one thing that they Lader's good at a lot of things, but one thing that Lader's very good at is short names that still manage to get enough kind of liquor flavour in there and feel unique enough, where it's like root.
Yeah, they have a naming convention.
It's 4 letters.
Yeah, or 4-letter. Yeah, even
I guess so.
Didn't they have a game that's like 2 4-letter names? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean root, vast, oath, like.
Oh yeah.
So hopefully this retheming and whatever redesign they're doing, if they're doing any at all, will make the game a bit more attractive. I mean, you can't judge anything off just a Kickstarter campaign, because sometimes some do well and some don't. There's not always like a exact rule, but who knows?
I'm down for a pirate game from Lader Games.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yar.
I haven't even played Root, but I want more. I like pirate games, I think.
Lolies goes, pirate games. Pirates? I mean, different on.
I would say, did they confirm that Kyle Ferrin is doing the art?
No,
if not,
they
I
did
would
not.
assume there's a very strong possibility that Kyle Ferrin is doing the art. And
they do, because
I'm very much down to see Kyle Ferrin's take on pirates.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
All right, excellent.
Okey-dokey.
I'm going to jump this one up the list. It's actually a little further down, but I'm going to jump into this new Terraforming Mars card game, Ares Expedition. So Terraforming Mars, of course, came out a few years ago now, 2016, something like that, 2017. Game about, as it sounds, terraforming Mars for the good of corporations. So this is an interesting announcement because Terraforming Mars is quite card driven anyway. But you do have a big old board that you're kind of placing hexes on and transforming the atmosphere and terrain to make it safe for humans, but of course turning a profit at the same time.
Of course.
So Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition is described as being inspired by Terraforming Mars, which it's got
the name. It's Terraforming Mars.
Yeah.
Ares Expedition. You'd think it would be more than inspired by it.
It's not clear whether they're just stripping out the card play from original Terraforming Mars and just keeping it as cards, or whether they're going to do something else with it. There's not loads of details on it at the moment. They've put up kind of a pre-launch Kickstarter page. This is Stronghold Games, the publisher of Terraforming Mars. And they just said it will have faster gameplay, and more importantly for most people, I think, that it will have... there are more than 200 cards in the box, and they will have original illustrations, which is one of the often criticised elements of original Terraforming Mars, is it just looks a bit bum.
The front cover's really nice. It's such a shame. I really like the artwork for it, but the rest of it is just...
So, yeah, I mean, I haven't played loads of Terraforming Mars, I'll be upfront. It's always been one of those games that I've wanted to play more of, but I know a lot of people really love it.
I've got some friends who are obsessed
same.
with that,
I've got some friends who are also obsessed at the moment with playing it. Like, they're always playing... I think they have the digital version of it, and they've been playing a lot of that. So, well, there's quite a few examples of that, where there's, like, smaller versions of larger games that kind of strip out a certain aspect of it, and then just, like, that's it. I say that, I can't think of any, but I'm fairly sure that's happened in the past.
And it's not just, I think maybe tellingly, it's not just the original designer. There are a couple of co-designers also listed on this new game, so it sounds like it might be a more substantial kind of mechanical rebuilding, I guess, rather than just a very quick let's pull this bit out and just plonk it in its own thing. And it will apparently play in between 45 minutes to an hour with up to 4 people, as well as having solo mode. So that's kind of what we know. It's worth saying they previously announced Terraforming Mars the dice game, which I think is called Terraforming Mars : Dice Game. So they at least put in a little more effort with the name and didn't just call it Terraforming Mars : Card Game.
Is there any updates on that, or has it just been floating around?
They should have called it also Terraforming Cards. Just want to say
Terraforming
that.
Cards is very good. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think the Terraforming Mars dice game was due to be released at Essen last year, but because Essen didn't happen, at least in person. I'm not sure whether it was actually released. I will look into that.
Ooh. We'll send our best investigators.
Yes.
Get on that case.
No word, although they put up the Kickstarter page for Ares Expedition, there's no word yet on when the Kickstarter will actually launch or when it might be in players' hands. So
could you make it a drinking game and call it Terraforming Mars?
That's also very good, yeah. I was going to be like, haha, look, here's my witty, like, spin on it, but I can't. I got nothing.
Yeah, don't expect wordplay from this corner at the moment.
So tell you what, instead of watching me struggle, let's move on to this next story, which is that Risk is the next board game to be adapted into a television series by the creator of Netflix's House of Cards, no less.
It's the most generic thing in the world.
So
like, Risk is literally just like war.
Yeah. So this is via Deadline, who report that it'll be helmed by Bo Willimon, who was the writer and creator, I think, of the remake of House of Cards on Netflix. And Willimon will...
Willimon or Wontiman?
Well, it seems that Willimon will, because Willimon's down to write and develop the series, and in the announcement was described as, quote, an avid fan of Risk.
It's like being an avid fan of bread. It's the most like thing in the world.
Wow.
And I love bread, but it's like, yeah, I mean, who isn't?
Bread.
Like,
I am an avid fan of bread.
Yeah, it's a weird one. So this is coming from kind of a collaboration between E1, which is like a TV and film studio owned by Hasbro, which publishes Risk, and Westwood, which is a production company co-founded by Wellerman. In the statement they put out, the president of E1 said that they'd be they'd be looking to, quote, reimagine the brand and so much more.
The thing
what that means.
Yeah, the thing is, there is a reason why there are about 100 versions of Risk, because it's like it's
generic.
You can just slap, you can slap Warhammer on it. You can slap. I think there's a Zelda one. Like, you know, it's just. I think it's base. The base version of Risk is just what, like World War One or something. I don't.
No, I think it was. I want to say
Napoleonic.
Napoleonics.
Yeah, it's just take a European, I guess, war or a world war, and then just like, here it is in a board game. And like, Risk is fine. Like, I don't really have strong feelings on the game itself. It's more like the theme of it isn't exactly why, unless you're a fan of like a specific version because you like the IP, the theme isn't why people play Risk. So I just I can't think any other reason why they would adapt it other than the fact that Hasbro are currently, you know, surging forward with adaptations of their brands, and it's a well-known one. Like, I get D&D, you know, I don't get like some of the other ones like Risk, because I'm just like, well, come on, Hasbro, like, are there other IPs that you own that actually have more of a narrative?
Yeah, at some point you kind of look at it as like a cynical marketing move where it's like, people know Risk, and trying to create a World War, whatever war it may be, series with like a brand new IP is probably much harder than just going, yeah, I don't know, it's Risk. And then at least some proportion of people tune in going, I want to see the Risk thing.
Especially considering how competitive television is at the moment. Like, sure, if they'd done this like a few decades ago, then maybe I would be like, okay, that's interesting. But now television is like, like it's a harsh world out there. Like, you have seasons being cancelled left and right.
Yeah.
I just really think you would need to pick something a bit stronger than Risk.
Yeah. But we'll see. I mean, maybe it'll be fantastic. Who know? Who can
tell?
Hey,
you know, I'm digging into it, but maybe it'll be the next. I don't know. What people argue. Castlevania.
Wait till everybody gets thirsty for canon number 4 out of Risk.
Oh god. Oh, yeah, I don't know. People are arguing about Sopranos now, aren't they? So let's just say that.
Yes. But as a quick reminder, because they're listed in this story, some of the upcoming board game and tabletop properties currently in the works for TV or film include the D&D movie, the live-action D&D series, the Netflix series based on Magic the Gathering, the Ticket to Ride reality show, the Uno game show, and the Catan film. So add that to this list.
Even Catan I can see working better than Risk.
Yeah.
And Catan has connotations that are not good.
It's just generic war, isn't it? Generic war game number 1.
Anyway,
but we'll see.
Enough.
There's no word on when we might see anything out of it or who might star. Or I think they've confirmed that it will be series, so it will be episodic. But that's about it.
Following the life of, what was it? You said tank number 2.
Canon number 4.
Canon number 4. There you go.
That'll do. On similar news about games that everybody owns and complains about, Uno turns 50 this year.
Well, a friend of mine the other day was the two of them were playing board games on TTS, and they were like, can you I didn't want to play with them, and they were like, can you suggest a 2-player game? And I was like, yeah. And I was trying to think of something like that, they could learn the rules themselves quite quickly, and I was like, how about Patrick? It's a really nice game. Also, like, the girl who's asking about it, like, she's into like that kind of crafty stuff, so I thought she might like the theme, and I kind of was like, I'm gonna tell them that, but I know 100% they're not gonna go learn the rules themselves, so like I kind of didn't have much hope that they would do it, and in the end they played Uno, and apparently they weren't even playing by the proper rules, and I was like, okay, well.
Mr. Jarvis, I dare you to say the name of Uno's exact birthday. Please say it.
Uno's exact birthday?
As in, like, the name of the anniversary that Uno is celebrating.
Oh yeah. Well, I think semi-centennial is one. And then Chase in this story has used the quinquagenary?
Oh, where is it? I want to see it.
Yeah, this is our new challenge. You've got to try and figure out how to say that.
But either way, it's turning 50, and the news out of this is that they're putting out new decks, because it's Uno and they put out new decks. But more kind of notably, they are doing the first ever Uno World Championship, and the prize pool is $50,000.
Whoa! Can I have $50,000, please?
It's a lot of money to win in a game of Uno.
High stakes.
So I think it'll be open to. I think they're inviting people to play through the digital version. I don't think there's details yet on exactly when it will launch, but it will be this year. So yeah, and then they're putting out some premium sets. They have slightly new mechanics. One of them comes with a coin and has some cards where you flip a coin.
Lolies, we have to get you trained up for the contest.
I mean, 100% I'm gonna go win this and leave Dicebreaker. I'm just gonna tell you now.
Whoa, no, that's not the plan. You're gonna split the money between us.
Yeah, sorry, I'm gonna. Yeah, it's like Matt said, I'm
this.
gonna be a pro Uno player.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be a Pruno player.
And what's the adjective that comes to mind when you think of Uno?
Fun.
That's right. It's 50 years of being wild. Wild is the word. That is the tagline for this 50th anniversary, which
50 years.
I suppose, are there wild cards in Uno?
Yeah.
I suppose that's what they're going
the
for.
color, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't get particularly wild when playing Uno. But I've not played Uno in a very long time, so.
When you think about it, though, right? It was there before the likes of like Flux and like just lots of these kind of random games where things change quickly and often.
I'm more a fan of.
I'm trying.
I'm more a fan of What, to be honest with you. I think it's a superior game. What? Yes.
What?
It's called What?
What?
One of the interesting things out of this article from Toy News, kind of notably, and probably a good indication of why Uno is being turned into a TV show and all of this, is that it's available in 80 countries and it sells at a rate of 17 decks a minute. Woo. Despite literally everybody I know having played or owned Uno at some point in their lives, it continues to just fly off shelves, it seems.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's pretty staggering. So it just kind of shows you that it's been around now for literally 50 years and it's still going strong.
It's not going away anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's one of those games a lot of people will like take camping with them or play when they're drinking, so they get destroyed a lot, so then you have to buy a new set because it's just cards, isn't it?
Yeah. It's just cards, innit? That should have been the tagline.
That should have been Dicebreaker's tagline. It's just cards, innit?
Let's move on to this next one. Alex Meehan from today. Tell us about the new D&D book.
Well, okay. The new D&D book is called Candlekeep Mysteries. I genuinely had no idea that this was coming out until it was announced, so, kudos to keeping the secret. But, yeah, it's a collection of one-shot adventures, and the theme of it is kind of based around this place called Candlekeep, which is like a fortress in the Forgotten World setting. It's a big library, and so each one-shot is like its own sort of book within the library. And they're all, strangely enough, themed around mystery. But more importantly, each of the 17 stories, or most of them, have been written by people who aren't like just directly connected to Wizards of the Coast. So they have a few recurring sort of creators doing some of the stories, but they've got quite a wide variety of writers involved, including Graham Barber, who is the creator of People of Color Gamer. It's a website where they've previously talked about, the problem that D&D's had with racism and not properly addressing it. And, we've covered this issue quite a bit in the last few months, particularly with the release of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. They were among a lot of the people who were kind of disappointed by, is this the response to, people's understandable complaints? But they've done a one-shot for this book along with contributors like Kelly Lynn D'Angelo, who is a lyricist, Alison, please forgive me for any of these names being butchered, Alison Holm, and creator of queer role-playing content, the High Rollers Dungeon Master Mark Humes, Jennifer Kretschmer, creator of resources for accessibility and RPGs, Daniel Kwon, who is the co-host of Asian Represent podcast, and Kiana Shaw, co-creator of the tabletop role-playing game Safety Toolbook. And that's just like some of the writers involved. Pretty much every one of the one-shots has been written by like someone from the community, just outside of Wizards of the Coast, which is nice to see because this is a diverse collection of authors, and hopefully it's a step in the right direction that Wizards are taking to get, people involved from different backgrounds who can actually provide, one, some more diverse sort of stories and viewpoints, and two, like, improve the way that, certain groups are represented in the role-playing game, So this book is out on March the 16th. We don't know how much it costs, but yeah, it's intriguing, and I like a good one shot. So,
yeah, like you suggest, I think this is a good, it's a good sign from Wizards after, let's say, some not so great signs
last year. Yeah,
but the hope is that this isn't just a one-off, and this just becomes like essentially the norm. Like every book,
well, hopefully
has this kind of
Hopefully, this isn't just a response to "Oops, we did a bad."
Yeah.
Let's make up for it by employing some great people and then just like not employing them again.
Yeah.
Hey,
maybe offer that stuff in a way that's not just selling another book. Like maybe, support it in ways that don't just make you more money.
I mean, ultimately, they'll like. The thing is, there's obviously a huge homebrew community for D&D that produced, some really excellent stuff. For, people who are not just white and cis and male. And unfortunately, because Wizards are very protective of their license and things like that, the homebrew stuff very much is, this is, like not official stuff, but we'll give it to you for free, or you contribute in some way. But hopefully Wizards, I guess it'd be asking too much for them to kind of acknowledge that stuff a bit more rather than just kind of letting it exist. I mean, it's not as bad as like wiping it out or anything, so could be worse. But
yeah, and hopefully the writers who are kind of external members of the community here become the internal members of the design team for D&D in the long
or at least like reoccurring writers. Maybe some of them don't want to be tied exclusively to D&D, but certainly get their input more often, please.
And to tie up this week's news, just a quick one with the announcement that Origins Games Fair will be returning this year. At least that's the plan, in person, but not until the autumn. So Origins Games Fair, for folks who aren't aware, it's more of like a trade fair. It's hosted by GAMA, which is the Game Manufacturers Association of America. So it's more focused on retailers and publishers, but it's become one of the kind of bigger trade shows for tabletop games in general and board games specifically. It's usually held in June time, I think June, July time, early summer. But last year it was postponed and then cancelled, the physical event, replaced by Origins Online, which was then also cancelled because GAMA just didn't voice any support for the Black Lives Matter movement that was taking place over the summer, leading to, rightfully so, a number of exhibitors and designers and other folks pulling out of the event. So they ended up cancelling both the physical event and the online event. But they've announced that the physical convention will return from September 30th to October 3rd. This was kind of announced with the usual caveats of the other events that have been announced recently. So they've said that this is based on the, quote, hopeful news of the vaccination rollout in kind of the face of the coronavirus pandemic, coupled with reports from the CDC on the safety of resuming public events. So safety is our primary concern, and we believe holding Origins later in the year provides the best path forward to have an in-person event this year. We're working with other game convention organisers to develop guidelines for safe events. So some of those guidelines would include wearing masks as mandatory, social distancing, hand sanitation stations, and temperature checks. Apparently they'll announce those from next month onwards. So it sounds like, again, it's being announced with the usual caveats of if it can be held safely, it will be held. But like with everything the past 12 plus months, maybe take it with a pinch of salt as to whether it will actually happen, because it's dependent on a number of elements. But still, it's interesting. It follows the announcement that Gen Con will be back this year. Again, they're hoping to bring it back this year if all is well. Of course, PAX Unplugged, which is organised by our owners, ReadPop, the owners of Dicebreaker. That's been announced for later in the year, but subject to the same, safety requirements. If it can be held safely, it'll be held. If not, it won't. And Eschen Spiel, which was half the mark, because when they postponed it last year, they immediately put up 2021 dates for October 14th to 17th, 2021. So I think, like with all of this, at the moment, who knows what we'll look like in 6 months, let alone 8 to 10. But there's hopefully some sign that if the state of the world improves, then we might be looking at a return of some of those conventions. Although in what form, who can tell?
As a great song once said, life is a mystery.
I really thought you were going to say life is a roller coaster. Yeah.
Just get right.
So who knows?
Yeah, but there we go.
Who knows?
Who knows? Of course, we hope everyone's staying safe and well out there, and taking the necessary steps to protect yourself and others. Let's move on to some emails. Alex Lolies, would you like to read this one from Phil, please?
Oh boy, would I ever. my Dicebreaker team. 2020 is gonna go down, has gone down, as one of the most memorable years for a lot of people for one big reason. People's habits and working practices were radically changed in a very short amount of time, myself included. What is one positive that you have from this whole experience? All the hugs, socially distant I hope, and best wishes, Phil Saunders.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, I mean Phil makes a fantastic point. I mean my at home work setup is a lot better, I guess. That's improved a lot. I don't know. I don't know how to. Somebody else start.
I think it's been really hard, but one of the things that I've taken away from last year is kind of just the solace of the people around me, like friends, particularly. Everyone was kind of in the same terrible situation. Some more terrible for some than others. But the way that like my close friends supported both other friends and me at points was it was really kind of reassuring in terms of knowing that despite how the world can sometimes seem, there are a lot of people out there that care, and no matter how dark things may get at points, like how bad things can happen, there is always an upside of people trying to do what's right and help each other out. So that was what I took away from it. And sometimes that came in the form of playing Muyong as a cat person in Final Fantasy XIV, and sometimes that came as the result of like late night heart-to-hearts. It took a lot of forms, but I was just very appreciative of friends and of course of the people I work with, because we faced a lot of challenges in the team. If you haven't noticed, it's quite hard to keep covering physical board games when none of you can be in the same room together.
But we've done it. We've done it. God damn it!
We've kept doing it somehow.
We've made it. Yes, very well said, Mr. Jarvis. For me, okay, Lord of the Rings. I watched that again last year.
Just in general, just the positive is Lord of the Rings.
And it was great. Playing Root and Scythe and discovering all these really great games through digital versions, and getting excited about playing the physical version eventually. But discovering these games that people are willing to play on a sometimes weekly basis, and kind of having the opportunity to get really deep into those kind of games, because usually I wouldn't do that sort of thing. Usually I would play whatever, but because we can't meet in person and people don't have anything better to do, we play Root every week for several months, which I really enjoy. And also, more seriously, I have a general problem with not allowing myself to take time to just do nothing. And obviously with the pandemic, I can't go out and do things I would usually often do. So obviously I feel that time with work and whatever, but it's kind of forced me to not do anything, which is sometimes nice, because I actually learn how to relax, and sometimes I can really struggle with that. So I think last year was really good for teaching me how to relax a bit more.
In the most stressful year. But I absolutely get it.
Yeah, just watch some TV or play a video game or something, not some social obligation or work or going to the shop or something. It's just me sat there doing something I do enjoy that doesn't require me to schedule anything in.
I think mine is actually quite similar to kind of what both of you have been saying. I think it's people as well. And it's weird because if you'd asked me in 2019 what I think about people, I would have told you I hate people. But like 2020 has really seen like, yeah, like my friendship group, well, you know, certain members of my friendship group kind of getting tighter with each other, and like I guess almost like seeing who your friends are. But also I've made a lot of new friends through like streaming, through Dicebreaker and through streaming, kind of, I guess both, because a lot of the community I have in streaming came from Dicebreaker, and then obviously like the Dicebreaker community in itself has been like really great. Yeah, just made some new friends, and kind of, I guess I've had more time to get closer with friends I already had, or people who were acquaintances before who've become very close friends to me this year. Yeah, I guess that is it. That is what 2020 has been good for. And also I've found something that I'm really like passionate about, and it's like a fun project for me as well. Getting time to just do some creative stuff that's not like
for work,
necessarily work related. Yeah.
All right, thanks, Phil. I forgot to mention that if you have a question or message for us, you can reach us at podcast@dicebreaker.com. Or you can find us on Twitter at @joindicebreaker, or just pop on the website and leave a comment, dicebreaker.com. Meehan, would you like to read this one from Ollie, please?
Oliver says, what's been the biggest positive surprise of the year? A new game, a new way to play things, something that worked better than expected. I think going off to playing the same kind of board games online, I think my biggest unexpected surprise is like how I could actually be somewhat competent with those kind of games. So like in the past, games like Siphon Root and things like that, like chunky, you know, on the higher end scale of weight, although debatable, like games like that I'd usually be too scared to kind of touch, because, you know, I have like an idea that I'm not especially great at, you know, devising strategies and being competitive in that kind of situation. But like last year, or over the last year, I've kind of discovered that actually, you know, I'm not winning consistently, which is fine, because I'm playing with people who also have a lot of experience with playing board games. But I'm not doing like embarrassingly bad, and I'm actually enjoying it, and I'm learning more from it and getting better every time I play. And I think, yeah, the big surprise is learning that I'm capable of like doing that. And that's been a nice surprise. There you go.
Nice. Lolies?
I don't know if it's really a surprise. I guess like for me, because I mean a new game was one of the questions there. I have a bunch of new games that I kind of got, particularly at the end, kind of towards the end of last year. Because in the last like 5 years or so, I've always worked either for a board game company or for like, you know, Dicebreaker, and it's or at a board game cafe. So I've always had access to quite a big library of games. So I've never really found the need to buy games unless I really, 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 really like it. Like that's kind of always been like my thing. I'm like, I don't really buy a game unless I know I'm gonna play it to death, because otherwise I just have access to it at work. And so last year, also like partly because I wanted to have like games in my library, but actually more so because I wanted to try and support like board game cafes and shops that are obviously having to shut down because of the pandemic, and are kind of relying on selling games and like doing little bits of other things that I've been trying to like do my bit, even if it's one game at a time, trying to do that. So yeah, I have a bunch of games that are still in plastic because I haven't had a chance to play them, but it's I guess games that have been long overdue to be in my library anyway. You know, that I've kind of had a list of games that I've wanted to add for a while, and last year was kind of a good time and reason to do that and to try and do my bit and help out.
Yeah, I think for me it's actually similar to what both of you kind of said for the last question, is that I, for several years, many years, was writing for a board game magazine, and I was reviewing about a dozen to 24 games a month. So it was a very kind of intense experience of playing things every night, having to play them to review standard, write something up, get it out. And this year, partly because Dicebreaker is a different kind of outlet, and partly because of everything that's happened, I've been able to slow down and just kind of rediscover games that I had kind of played at the time and maybe enjoyed, but just had to move on from because of the nature of things, or that I just hadn't had the experience to really play before. So I've discovered like multiple new RPGs that I'd never played before, that I played with a group who it was hard to get together before, whereas it kind of as a silver lining of everybody being remote, we were hopping in a video call each weekend, and different people were GMing and different people were playing different games and so on. So I think it's been a nice surprise of just sometimes in this job, having done it for a long time now, and it happened when I worked in video games as well. It's very different covering things professionally compared to enjoying them as a hobby. You obviously do it because you love games, but sometimes it's so much work and you are completely immersed in it all the time that you just don't have the opportunity to go back to things, or sometimes they're the last thing you want to do in your free time because all of your working hours are spent looking at board games or thinking about board games or playing board games. So I think it's been nice to be able to be like, oh right, I do really love board games, that's why I do this job, but also I can enjoy them outside of, the professional bits.
An excellent answer.
I'll read this one from Rampaging Noob on Twitter. Please may I ask, if you all had to pick one book as your all-time favourite, perhaps most inspirational or defines your taste in books, what would it be?
Mine is called When I Was 5 I Killed Myself, which sounds really dark. But it didn't happen in the book, spoiler. But that is the title of the book, and it's been my favourite for a few years, and I highly recommend it. But it's kind of quirky. It's written from the point of view of an 8-year-old who was misunderstood and gets sent to like a kind of an institute. But it's because it's written from this 8-year-old perspective, it's really sweet and very funny, and very innocent as well, because he just doesn't really understand a lot of the things that are kind of happening to him. It's not even a very long book either. It's really, really like it. That's my fave.
Nice.
Mr. Jarvis.
Oh gosh.
Do you have an answer?
I did English literature at university, so like a lot of the books that I read for like a long time were the kind of horrifically pretentious, classics. And I think, like I read modern stuff now, but a lot of what I read is informed through that. But I think, although it's a horrendous choice, one of the books that I remember reading and being like, wow, was Ulysses by James Joyce. And it wasn't because it was like this massive, like incredibly intellectual book or anything like that. I think it was a book that I read and it went beyond what a book could do, if that makes sense. So like the way it was written, the structure of it, the way it plays around with, if you're reading it out loud, it sounds a certain way. And it was one of the, I think particularly having read a lot of like dusty old classics to that point for school, it was one of those books that I remember reading just being like, wow, this is so different, and it kind of plays with what books can do. And it's similar, like I really like House of Leaves, that does a similar thing, where it plays with the way the text looks on the page. And I think a lot of what I enjoy are books and things in general, like games, films, that go beyond what you would expect from that kind of like medium, I guess. It's like, oh, this is like playing around with this in a fun way, and it can be, you can look at it and go, yes, I'm going to write many essays about this, or you can just read it and have fun with it, and it's designed for you to have fun with it if you just read it a certain way.
Yeah. So that old saying of there are two wolves inside of you is very relevant for me when it comes to books. Because on the one hand, I, like Matt, also did English literature I did literature and language at university. And before that, I was a massive reader as well. And so at university, I like both classic novels, that you would read on a course in university, but I also like a lot of fantasy and sci-fi novels, and particularly young adult novels. So when I want something a bit more intellectual and that really, pushes myself, I'll read like a classic novel. But then when I just want something that's kind of for fun, I'll read a lot of young adult fiction. But so mine's kind of a two-part answer. So when it comes to the classic stuff, I'm a massive fan of Thomas Hardy, who was a 19th century novelist. And I did my dissertation on his work and everything. And his book Far From the Madding Crowd is like one of my favourite books of all time. I love it so much. I love the character of Bathsheba so much. I used to envision myself as her. I love that book so much because it's just about understanding people and their different perspectives, and also like understanding, people's independence and like respecting that. So there's that choice. But then when it comes to the sort of fantastical young adult stuff, so when I was quite a bit younger, I didn't used to read at all. I used to listen to a lot of audiobooks. My mum would be like, "You should read more, it's good for you." But then one of the first books I ever read was called Sabriel. Matt might know it.
I don't.
Oh, okay. It's a young adult book about a young woman who becomes they're like a necromancer, but sort of not. And it's written in that way of, it's for a youngish audience, but it doesn't treat them like idiots. And it still has some really interesting ideas in it. And when I first read that, it sort of sparked this obsession in me to read all the time. So then after I read that, I just ate up books like nobody's business. And now I read quite a lot because of that. So those are my answers.
Nice. To tag on the end of this, what's a book you've both been reading recently that you've enjoyed?
I've been reading The Stand for about 6 months, and when I say I've been reading for about 6 months, I haven't touched the book in about 3 months.
Is that Stephen King?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's about a disease that spreads around the world and kills people. So it's
Loli.
I can understand why you might have put it down.
It's really good. I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. I used to be a big reader as well. I used to read all the time, but in recent years, I found it really hard. I can't concentrate. I don't know what it is, but I get really easily distracted and stuff.
I'm currently reading a book called Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson. It's part of the Stormlight Archives series of books, which are high fantasy novels. There's lots of magic and things like that, but it's kind of quite subversive in a lot of ways, particularly towards high fantasy as a genre, and the concepts of being honourable and the way we do things and stuff. And it has some of the best character arcs I've ever experienced in a book series. And oh my god, it's so big. I've been reading it for a month and I'm only about 20% through. I don't have the physical copy, I've got it on Kindle, but it is a massive chunk. But I would recommend pretty much anything from Brandon Sanderson anyway, because they write a lot of good stuff and they never stop writing. I don't know how they sleep. The amount of novels they've written is astounding. Massive work ethic.
How about you, Matt?
I'm reading At Swim to Birds by Flann O'Brien, who was an Irish writer from the 30s or 40s, maybe a little later on. But it's very, it plays into the thing I was saying earlier about, it's a story about a student that basically goes out, has a bunch of drinks, pukes everywhere. But then he's writing a story about the owner of a pub who is then writing a story about old Irish legends. So apparently, I am not the right person to know, but apparently it remixes a lot of existing Irish legends and mythology, so characters from actual mythology together. But then all the stories start blending into one. So there are like the characters start resisting what each writer is trying to do and start popping into the different stories. It's like very meta. But
that sounds cool.
I'm enjoying it. It's very. It's got like a very. I mean, it's very of the time, but it's also got a very base sense of humor at points. Like there's a lot of people getting drunk and throwing up. There's a lot of like.
I mean, that's just Ireland. Though,
yeah.
Whoa.
Now that I think about it, a book that I maybe would have said actually as a book that I just love is Confederacy of Dunces, which is very similar in that it is like it's effectively about nothing, but it's very silly and has a lot of jokes in.
See, like I just find it amusing that even though we have very similar tastes in certain things, Matt Jarvis, I feel like our taste in books are like so different. Like in terms of you like books that kind of deliberately try to mess with the medium, whereas anything like that annoys me so much. Like I just get. It's why I'm not a big fan of. Oh my goodness, I can't remember her name now.
Woolf.
Woolf, yeah, I don't like Virginia Woolf. I respect her, she's fine, but I just don't like that style of, oh, we're going to twist with the medium, man. We're going to do things your eyes have never seen. I'm just like, I just want to read a story, goddammit. Like,
it can definitely disappear up its own backside at points.
Yeah, I'm just
like
not a fan
like
of
that. Yeah.
Of that. But I respect the fact that you are a fan of it, so. No.
All right, should we try and squeeze in one last one here?
No.
That's a rhetorical question because I'm going to do it.
Why not, Mr. Jarvis?
Lolies, would you like to read this one from Revolver Rock? I'll add that I cut this down a little bit because there were quite a few questions here. Thank you for your full email. They were good questions. I've just cut it down for time, but thank you for your email.
Okay. Revolver Rock says, hello, I hope you had a brilliant festive season and that coming year is good to you all. Here are some questions, I guess. Apart from Embryo Machine, and that's pretty clever, are there any other translated games with revolting titles? That's question number one. And also, with the UK going back into lockdown and kids learning from home, are there any games you would recommend for being educational? Yours sincerely, Revolver Rock.
Yeah, thank you for your question. This follows on from last week's podcast, ladies. If you don't have the context for the name Embryo Machine, it's a Japanese board game that's been translated into English that's about fighting mechs, and they are called Embryo Machines. But I think Gans Clever is awkward. I don't think it's like it doesn't leave like a taste in the mouth like Embryo Machine.
It's like Ghost Splits. Like that's Geisa Splits, but like people call it Ghost Splits. I don't know, I don't think it sounds as good, Ghost Splits. I don't know, is it just me? Does that make any sense in English?
I think that's another one of those games that I've always heard people just call it its German title, like Gans. Like it has an English title, but people just don't use it, as far as I've ever heard. But...
I call it Ghost Splits, but...
Yeah, I know lots of people call it Ghost Splits. Well, not lots of people, but yeah, a few.
I mean the intricacies of different languages, they can have effect, but I guess gun and gun, like, is that what it's called in
gun and gun, yeah,
in Japanese? Like,
I don't know if that's the original title or if that's translated.
Yeah, but... it just seems like a bit of a it's stupid in a way that's kind of fun, but also like, does it actually describe the game? I guess you're wielding weapons, but that could be any game, really. I can't think of any other examples.
Yeah, I think often, like, that's pretty clever, Gunshot Clever. It's like, it's a bit awkward and clunky, but I think I'd rather have that than just something that feels so bland. And I feel like that's often more the problem in board games. It's like, it's just generic kind of fantasy twaddle where it's like, I don't know, Epic Adventure #1, or Sword and Sorcerer, or Sword and, you know, swingy sword and magic-y cast. Like
a lot of translation stuff just tries to like water it down for the audience that it's sort of selling it to. And so they will pick like a generic name like that rather than something that might be a bit truer to the original. But as for educational games,
I would recommend Timeline, which is like, it's not the best, like the most exciting game in the world. It's just you have cards in your hand and they do different packs. It's like when famous people or inventions or world events, but you just try and place them in the right place along the timeline. So as you place more cards and each has a date, you're trying to guess where, did this come before or after this? Did it come before or after that? And find the right place, and then you flip them over and see if you were right. Which I think, like I say, it's pretty standard as a card game. Like it does what it does, but I think as an educational tool, it's probably pretty useful.
I think also if you're kind of going along that kind of thing, because it's kind of like trivia, that isn't it? Linky, we played Linky on a Christmas party stream, and they've got Dinky Linky as well, which is for like 8+, and that's essentially just a trivia game, but for like tailored to kids, which is quite good. Obviously the questions are simpler and stuff. Yeah,
I can't stop thinking about that. What was that game we had in the office that had a penguin on it?
Penguin
Peril?
Peril?
The break the ice thing.
Yeah.
Is that educational?
No, I know it's not. I just can't stop thinking about it because it had an amazing box cover.
Yeah.
There's definitely loads, but my mind's just gone absolutely blank.
I know, Similio? Would that count?
Yeah, I suppose. I guess like the thing there is you need to know the knowledge up front. Yeah. But it's got famous people in it. So if you're just trying to make learning names interesting.
Or there's a fictional one as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
About like fairly well known like fairy tale characters and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's a few.
I'm gonna think of loads, and then I'm gonna film them separately. I'm just gonna edit myself into here.
That might be. Time's just gonna freeze for us while you're like.
Yeah.
No, I'll have you guys still like talking, but I'll like cut out your audio, so you'll still be like moving around. It'll be fine.
Yes, I know exactly the thing to suggest. It's this game that I am inserting now. Thanks, me.
Like the clip, the same clip of me and Matt talking is just going to be like looped over and over again while you're just like.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for your question. We hope, obviously, you're staying safe and it's not disrupting things too much for either you or your kids. So yeah, that's about it for this week's Dicebreaker podcast. We will return, of course, next Friday. Thank you for being back, Lolies. It's nice to have you back.
Thank you for having me back. I guess. Thank you for not firing me over the Christmas break.
Oh, you're very welcome. Of course, we should say what's coming up. That's the bit of this podcast that I've forgotten and skipped over. Alex Lolies of the video team. What can we expect?
Don't start with me. We can expect many great videos, such as the ones I'm about to tell you, Matt Jarvis. Like, for example, turned off features. Oh my god. How, for example, there's the stream that we did yesterday, which will have been painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Friday, the podcast, which you're listening to now. Saturday, hopefully we should have a list of 5 games we can't play in 2021.
What? Did you say we can't play?
We can't wait to play. Did I say we can't play?
I think that's what.
Sorry.
Maybe that's what I heard. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Sunday, I think the guys are playing Din at some point, and they're gonna do a video on that. And then on Wednesday, I don't know if this is what the name of it is, or if we don't have anything on Wednesday and they've just decided to put something in. But it says Henata Tafel.
Yeah, that's the Viking game Will's chatted about on last week's podcast.
Right.
Okay.
I've not really been here Well, I've been here the last 2 days, but I've not been very involved in the planning, I have to admit. So yes, that is what's happening.
All right.
Just go to the YouTube page. You're on it right now, possibly.
Just follow us. Just hit the bell icon. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, and then you'll know. Then you don't have to keep coming to the podcast every week and finding out from me who doesn't know.
Meanwhile, over on Dicebreaker.com, we already have up a list of the best Black Library books from the Warhammer 40,000 universe by Emma Putnam. If you are looking to get into that universe, I've not read any of them, but I've always been intrigued. There are a lot of Warhammer books, it turns out.
There are a lot.
So if you want to trim down to just the good ones, we've got you covered. This Friday, we will have a little sneak peek of the next Magic the Gathering set, Coldheim. With maybe an exclusive reveal. We definitely have an exclusive reveal. I can tell you that. Meanwhile, coming out, of course, we have daily news from myself, Meehan, and Chase, who's joined us again. We're very grateful for that. And we will have, very soon, or within the next couple of weeks, Alex Meehan is looking at some of the best board games you should be playing right now. Kind of the top picks from the last few years. So
this is the best, the ultimate.
The best of the best.
The only list of board games you need to
I hope Vast's not on there, Meehan.
Have my feelings on the game indicated that it will be.
Number 1, Root. Number 2, Scythe.
Just by quantity, if nothing else.
It would just be Root, Scythe, and Clank, and that's it.
But we will, of course, have more features and interviews and looks ahead to the new year and what's coming out very soon. So if you're not already, keep your eyes peeled on youtube.com/Dicebreaker, Dicebreaker.com, and find us on Twitter at JoinDicebreaker. But until we return next Friday, this has been the Dicebreaker Podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Alex Lolies.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us, Alex Meehan.
It's been wonderful.
I've been Matt Jarvis. Stay safe out there, look after yourselves, and until we meet again, have a lovely day.
Bye.
Bye.